Okay, well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this press briefing on our first working day of our presidency of the Security Council for the month of February. We just had the adoption of the program of work this morning, so that's already a big moment, of course, for us. And, well, as you know, this will be our first and also last presidency during our 2 years in the Security Council. So it's going to be a short month, February, but also a very busy and very full month for us. So let me quickly take through the main events of our program. And then, of course, as always, I'll be happy to answer questions, or at least try to answer questions. So we will have no less than 3 signature events in February. The first one will be on the 12th of February, which is also the International Day on Child Soldiers, it's called Red Hand Day. And so we will have a briefing on children and armed conflict on that day. A high-level meeting. It will be chaired by our Foreign Affairs Minister. And also we will have the presence of our King and Queen of the Belgians. And the King will make remarks on behalf of Belgium. So very high level, as I said. The focus will be on integrating child protection in peace processes. And actually, the Office of the Secretary General, of the Special Representative for Children and Armed Conflict, has just issued guidance on this subject, which was actually requested by the Council in 2017. So it took some time, but it's now there, it's ready. And the idea of this meeting is really to give visibility to this document and to encourage its use. We foresee the adoption of a PRST, a presidential statement, to welcome that document. As briefers, we will have the Secretary General himself. We will have also by VTC the Commissioner Shergi of the African Union, and a representative of the civil society, Mrs. Jo Becker of Watchlist, which is, as you know, a very known umbrella for NGOs active on children and armed conflict. Then the next day, on the 13th, we will have a second event, which will be an open debate on transitional justice. The Council has, of course, already dealt with some aspect of transitional justice before, for instance, through a mandate of peacekeeping operation in support of some aspects of transitional justice, but it was never thematic debate in the Council on this issue, and we felt this could be really helpful to have a general discussion on it and see how transitional justice can really contribute to peace building, how after a conflict to reconcile the society, turn the page of violence and conflict, and avoid relapsing into conflict. So that's the approach. That's going to be also a high-level meeting with our foreign minister as chair. And as briefers, we will have the High Commissioner for the Human Rights, Mrs. Bachelet, VTC from Geneva. We will have Father Francisco de Roux, who is the president of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Colombia. and is a very impressive man, and that's a process which is going right now, as you know. And also a civil society briefer, Mrs. Yasmin Souka of South Africa, who is a well-known expert on transitional justice and was also a member of the Truth Commission in South Africa. Then our third event will be on the 25th of February, and that will be a briefing on the cooperation between the European Union, the EU, and the United Nations. You know, this is a very strong partnership on many issues. We even have a sort of trilateral partnership, UN, EU, UA, African Union. That will be, sorry, I forgot to say, that will be with the new EU representative, Mr. Borrell, Joseph Borrell. That will be his first visit to New York, so that's going to be also quite interesting, I believe. Those are the main, so as I said, the signature events. Now, very briefly, let me mention some other meetings. On the 5th of February this week, we will have a briefing on small arms. This is a binaural discussion on the basis of the SG report. So as briefers, we will have Mrs. Nakamitsu of the Secretariat, and we will have also an expert of a think tank on light weapons trafficking, Mr. Damien Splitters. We will have the usual meeting on Syria, chemical weapons, the usual meeting also on Syria political, and as well Syria humanitarian. That will be at the end of the month on the 27th. And for that meeting, we expect the report of the Secretary General, which was tasked by the Council in the resolution adopted last month on the cross-border mechanism, requesting a report by DSG on possible alternatives for the Yarubia crossing points on the Iraq border. So we expect that the report will be available for that meeting. Then let me mention we will have the annual meeting with the OSCE chair in office, who is Albania this year. So we will have the Prime Minister of Albania himself coming to brief the Council. This will be on the 6th February morning. Yes. What? Many other usual, meetings on Yemen, of course. We will have a meeting on MINUSCA, Central African Republic, on Haiti. This will be the first discussion after the establishment of the new political mission, BINU. We will have the usual briefing on Middle East peace process with SRSG Mladenov, but we will have most probably also another meeting on Middle East peace process. I guess you are aware that President Abbas announced that he is going to visit New York next week, and so we have been approached already informally with the request of organizing a meeting, which is probably going to take place on the 11th in the morning with President Abbas. We haven't received the request, the formal request yet, but I think it's coming today, probably, and we intend to grant it. Also, while I'm speaking on the Middle East, the understanding is also that the United States will request close consultations in order to brief Council members on the American plan. And the idea, as I understand, will be that Mr. Kushner, as a special envoy, would be participating in that meeting. So I think I will stop here. I see you already have a lot of questions. So I stop here.
Just a second.
Thank you.
Edie, just a second. Welcome all, first of all. It's nice to see so many familiar faces and also some new faces. Thank you, Ambassador, for the introduction. Thank you to the spokes office for arranging this. Very briefly, on the left of the Ambassador, for those who do not know him, he's Matthias Bogart, that's our political coordinator. My name is Vincent Willekes, I'll be the press and communications person. And one final brief element of information. We will try, or we have the intention, to, during this month, every time before the Council meets, to do a brief stakeout to explain to the press what the meeting will be on the day. And I think we can now start with the questions. Valeria, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador, for this press conference on behalf of ANCA, and we wish you very good luck on the month of presidency. I think on behalf of all my colleagues, if you can just give some more details on when Kushner or the U.S. consultation will be, if there is a day. Is the 11 or other day? And my question is also Middle East. President Abbas said that he's thinking to present his peace plan, another peace plan on Middle East. So if you have any information on that, any clues about what's in the plan. Thank you so much.
Okay. We take maybe a few questions. No?
Edie? One at a time? Okay.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, fine.
It's easier.
Well, then, yes, on the date for the American presentation, I understand this will be this week on the 6th in close consultation, probably between 12 and 1. But this remains to be confirmed, of course, but I think that would be the idea. And on intention of President Abbas, no, I don't have any indication at this stage.
James?
James Bays, Al Jazeera. Obviously, you have seen the very worrying developments in recent hours in Syria and in Idlib, with the death of Turkish soldiers and the death of Syrian army personnel. As the President of the Security Council, but also as one of the pen holders of Syria Humanitarian, how concerned are you that the Russians and the Turks have been sort of leading the diplomacy on this, even though they're on different sides of the war, and their understanding seems to be beginning to break down in Idlib? How worried you are about the situation? You're not discussing it till the end of the month. Do you think you'll need to bring your discussions forward?
Well, yes, of course, we are extremely concerned by the situation, especially in Idlib, with, as you know, a lot of people being displaced in very, very dire conditions. You know, we already addressed that last month during the monthly meeting on Syria Humanitarian. We'll continue, of course, to follow the situation very closely. And I believe, you know, if there is a need of another meeting, because you're right, I mean, the normal meeting will be at the end of the month, so we'll have to see how it develops. So we will follow it very closely.
Edie?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. On Libya, the Council is considering a draft resolution. What's holding it up? We understand from the Russian Deputy Ambassador today that they want to see a resolution that is implementable and acceptable to both sides. So, I mean, Berlin was quite a few weeks ago already.
Yes. Well, absolutely. The idea, I think, was to have a resolution right after Berlin to keep the momentum, and that was the intention of the UK penholder. Now, as you know, this has been under discussion for some time now, and I would say, there are two aspects. One is the content of the text, and there were some differences, but I think they are not insurmountable. But there is also the issue of timing, and with some members, indeed, one thing to be sure that what is going on the ground is in phase with a possible resolution. So I think that's where we are. There have been some important meetings during the weekend. So Mr. Hassan Salameh met with Mr. Haftar. So we hope it's possible to build on that and to have a quick resolution. But let's see. It's, of course, in the hands of the penholder, UK.
Pamela?
Thank you, Ambassador, and we're looking forward to the month. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. My question is about coronavirus. Do you expect, there's nothing on this, the Security Council has taken up the health emergencies before. Is there any chance that there would be a meeting or any kind of briefing with Dr. Tedros from the World Health Organization, or some kind of a briefing during the month? Some experts think a pandemic is coming. Certainly the numbers are going up. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, there is a lot of attention going to that. But frankly, I don't think, certainly at this stage, there is no request for such a meeting of the Security Council. I think we have to remember that the main focus of the Council is on peace and security and basically conflict. So threat of peace and security. So I don't think we are in that situation yet, and I hope we are not going to go in that direction. So no, I don't expect such a meeting.
Evelyn?
Thank you very much for the briefing. Evelyn Leopold. On Syria chem weapons, do you expect any kind of a product or approval of the chemical weapons reports? Because Russia so far has denounced everything having to do with Syria using chlorine or any other kind.
Well, I'm afraid we will probably have a sort of repetition of previous discussions about this issue, with indeed the Council being quite divided. We won't have really new elements on the table, in the sense that the first report of the identification team of the OPCW will apparently not be ready yet. So that will probably be for next month. So I guess it will be, more or less the same discussion as we had before.
Nabil?
Thank you. Good luck, Mr. President, and thank you for this press briefing. On the Middle East, so I think Mr. Kushner will be ready to listen also in the briefing, maybe on Thursday, and to receive some questions from the Council members. So can you share with us your main concern that you may address in that meeting? What kind of question you have to Mr. Kushner on the plan? And also on the Middle East peace process, how would the Security Council address this issue? We have a juncture now. It's a big plan from the U.S. Also, it was rejected by the Palestinians and others. How should the Security Council address this matter? as a president, and as Belgium, what would you do in the council to address this matter?
Well, first on the meeting with Mr. Kouchner, I understand that indeed he would be ready to answer questions on the plan. I think that's indeed an opportunity, maybe to clarify some aspects. But it's not for me to say, what's going to be the questions. That's really for the members of the council. As to what the council should do, well, I think the idea is to recall the different resolutions that the Security Council has adopted on this issue. It's certainly the view of Belgium. I'm now perhaps putting my hat of presidency aside and speaking on behalf of Belgium, but our view is certainly that any solution first has to be arrived at through negotiations between the two sides, and that they have to be based on all these internationally agreed parameters, including UN Security Council resolutions. So that's how we see it.
About questions, I meant what would be your question in the meeting on Thursday?
Well, as president, I think I will leave my other colleagues mainly ask questions. The time will be very short, so we will need to be very efficient.
Benny.
Follow up on that. There are reports that Abbas is coming up with the alternative plan. Has this been communicated with you at any point? And also, have you seen any text of a resolution prepared for the Security Council?
No, I have no information on that. On a possible resolution, yes, we heard that I think they are working on something, but I haven't seen anything yet.
You haven't seen any text?
No text, no.
Please. Yeah.
Thank you. George Baumgarten, correspondent for Jewish newspapers in North America and other assorted media, including the Astana Times in Kazakhstan. Forgive me, it isn't clear, and we didn't get these calendars until some minutes into your briefing. When is it that you're going to be discussing the American plan? Which day is Mr. Kouchner coming? Is that the 11th or is that the 6th? And on the 25th, would you discuss the cooperation with regional organizations? Will that include the UNRCCA for Central Asia?
Okay.
Merci, monsieur.
Well, let me repeat again in order to be clear. We expect to receive requests from the American delegation for close consultations on the 6th with Mr. Kouchner to present the American peace plan. Then we expect to receive from Tunisia a request for a meeting with President Abbas on the 11th in the morning. And then your question on the regional cooperation. No, actually on the 25th, it's going to be only on EU-UN cooperation. Actually, on Central Asia, we had a meeting last month actually.
Yeah.
No, yes?
Yeah.
Last month.
January.
Yeah. So, no, this time it will be only about the EU, the European Union.
If I can just follow up a bit, will there be no usual monthly meeting on the Middle East, including the Palestinian question, as there is every month?
Yes, there will be also that normal meeting.
Which day is that?
That's going to be on the 24th. Yeah,
Thank
24th.
Thank you.
Please.
Hi, my name is Ibtisam Azim from the Daily Arabic Al Arabi Al Jadid newspaper. So I have two questions. The first one regarding the peace plan and the resolution that the Palestinians and others are working on. In your national capacity and also as a EU member. Could you say if there is a united position by the EU states regarding this issue, and what would you like to see in the resolution that being prepared, and both like national capacity and EU member? And the second question is regarding Libya and the resolution. My question is regarding the arm embargo and the fact that this arm embargo is being violated, has been violated all the time, despite the fact that you have a ship and a mission there. But do you think that there will be also a discussion regarding what the work of the ship, and whether there will be also beside, the Sophia mission, and whether you are going to have more than just training members of the Libyan coast or others? Thank you.
Okay. Well, on the first one, it's not really for me to say. My hope will be, that the Council can be united as much as possible on this issue. But I think we all know, what are the different positions there. On Libya, yes, the question of the embargo indeed is a very important one. I believe this will be addressed in the draft resolution to call for respect of the arms embargo, as was also said in Berlin, and all parties who were in Berlin committed to that. So we really hope we can reinforce that point and have respect for this embargo. That's
the Sophia mission. But how do you want to respect? You have been calling for years on respecting the arm embargo, and even in the last report of Mr. Salame, he said that even after all parties committed to respect the arm embargo, they were still delivering arms to the parties in conflict. So how do you want to implement your own resolution, whether it's with the Sophia ship or other missions?
Well, it's a good question. I think the only way is to repeat it, or every time put some pressure on the different countries concerned. That is what the panel of experts is doing. That is what the sanctions committee is doing. But I think the Council itself, through a resolution, should do it as well. But we'll see.
Thank you. Stefano Vaccara, Radio Radicale in Rome and La Voce di New York. It's a kind of a follow-up from my colleague. I think my colleague asked about the European Union, position. She was asking about the Palestinian plan, the peace plan, but I'm asking overall. This is your presidency, and is that it coincide with the Brexit? Is the moment to show to the world what is the state of the Union? Does the Union count at the UN, count in the world, or let's just forget the Union? So the question is, again, on the Palestinian plan, are we going to have a position? And also in Libya in particular, are you going to try to see that what we saw for months, actually years now, the division of important country in the matter, like Italy and France and others, is your presidency, how your presidency, Belgium presidency, is going to fix the European Union?
Oh, well, that is a very ambitious goal. No, look, on peace process, Middle East peace process, I think the EU has a well-established position, has been, confirmed so many times. Again, I think on the very day when the American plan was presented, there was a reaction by the EU special representative on behalf of the still 28 at that time member states. So I think that's very clear, and I think it's a strong position, really. On Libya, I think really, I mean, we all know there were some, in the past, some perhaps nuances or at least perception of nuances within the Union. I think we've made a lot of progress now, and I think the EU is much more, speaking really with one voice than perhaps it used to be some time ago.
Beto.
Thank you, Ambassador. Congratulations on your presidency. Do you expect any European division at the UN Security Council with the UK having left the Union on the 31st of January? Thank you.
Well, the question is the answer. I would say they are not member anymore. So I think if they would take another position, that would not mean that the EU is divided. But we're not there yet. But, the EU will be now the 27.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. Majid Ghili, Rudao Media Network. I have a question about Syria. There's a serious escalation right now between Turkey and the Syrian government. About more than 30, the Turkey says more than 30, they killed more than 30 Syrian soldiers. The Syrian government apparently killed 6 Turkish soldiers. Is there? Do you expect anything from the Council? Is there any discussion about a statement or a position about this this new development? And also in Syria, you mentioned the Eurubia crossing. Is there any hope with the renewal of the resolution that the crossing will be opened again? Are the Russians open for the idea of at least letting the crossing between Iraq and Syria be open? And my other question is about Iraq. The situation there is getting worse with a wave of protests and protesters getting killed in hundreds now. And the political system is in crisis. There is no leadership right now. A designated prime minister they are not sure that he can form a government. And the word that is described Iraq right now is chaos, just like it was in 2014 between when the ISIS took over almost half of the country. There's a meeting about UNAMI. What do you expect in that meeting? Do you think the Council can have a unity about a position about Iraq, about the situation? What kind of message you expect from the Council to the Iraqi government?
Okay, well, first on Syria, I already said, of course, we have a meeting planned at the end of the month on Syria Humanitarian. We'll follow the situation very closely. If needs be, we could have another, discussion before that. Iraq, we don't have a meeting planned on Iraq this month, but that's.
There is a UNAMI report due on 21st, and also on the Kuwait-Iraq.
Oh, right. Yeah. There is a report due,
yes,
which doesn't mean that we have a meeting. But it's
yeah.
Just
sorry, I was talking about the report. Yeah.
So well, again, I mean that's one of these issues, and we have many, where we have to keep an eye on the situation and whether developments would require a meeting of the Council. But right now, it's not planned.
My question on Syria was not about a meeting. It was about the current escalation between Turkey and Syrian government. Was there any discussion this morning about that?
No.
Rhonda Halbin, and I have a blog, a netizen blog at Tuts, and I have 2 pieces to the question. Michael Links is the rapporteur for the Palestinian situation, and it speaks at the General Assembly. I'm wondering if the Security Council has paid any attention to what he's done, because I thought he's particularly talked about annexation and the problem of annexing in the Palestinian situation, and then the second piece that he's talked about is that there's an improper understanding of the fact that there's a somebody who's a colonizer, and then the Palestinian situation, and that it's been for a long, long time. So it's not to just not understand it. So to look and to understand the ramifications of the length of time in terms of not allowing the annexation and the Palestinian situation to continue. That's been presented in the General Assembly. Has the Security Council paid any attention to this? And is there any concern to do that? Because I think he's given an overview that should be very helpful to the Security Council in this situation.
Well, I think some members of the Council insist that we keep, the two organs, the two institutions separate. So, although of course the work of the GA is there and can inspire any member, I think there is no formal link between the two. And so, the meeting on the 11th, I think we will really focus on the briefing by President Abbas, what he has to say about the American plan, what are their views, their plans. So, that will be really the focus on the meeting.
I have a separate. Just quickly, is what's happening with the Russian and Chinese resolution about the DPRK? Is that just not being mentioned anymore, or is there some work going on about that?
No, there's no work being done about it. So, as you say, I think it stays where it is.
Yeah. Joseph Klein, Canada Free Press, and congratulations on your presidency. Was there any request or any consideration being given this month to scheduling a meeting on the Iranian regime's decision or announcement that it intends to leave the JCPOA and resume building up its enrichment programs beyond the restrictions, and the question of whether there would be any snapback actions? And this also goes to whether the EU itself, minus the UK, has any unified position on how to respond to Iran's withdrawal decision.
No, we don't plan any meeting on Iran in the Council this month. As you know, the dispute settlement mechanism of the JCPOA has been activated. So there are meetings going on, but not here in Vienna. And I think there was an agreement to extend the different deadlines. There are some deadlines to really take the time to discuss this, in deep and quietly and constructively. So I don't think it will come to the table of the Security Council in the short term. It could eventually, of course, but that we really don't know at this stage.
Thank you. Fumitaka Sato from NHK on North Korea, follow up on the sanction regime on North Korea. So after Russia-China joint proposal on the easing the sanction, there seemed to be more disparity inside Security Council. Can you tell us your view on the status of the sanction regime, and what do you expect from the upcoming 7080 committee end of this month? Thank you.
Well, the meeting this month will be the report by the chair of the committee on the activities of the committee. Well, I guess there will be the repetition of known positions that you just described, with some members of the view that sanctions should be maybe not lifted, but a little bit eased. But others are of the view that, on the contrary, they have to be maintained and really seriously implemented in order to put pressure on North Korea to negotiate. So I think these tension between these two positions will remain. I don't foresee anything really new about that.
Any other questions? A follow-up?
Sorry. I have a quick question. There have been some letters sent by NGOs to the Security Council about the DPRK situation and the fact that there's some reports been done about sanctions and how they are violating the humanitarian rights of this Korean people. I wondered if anybody has seen these letters, that there's a long tradition of letters to the Security Council, and I thought they're intended to help the Security Council hear different views than they normally hear. Is that happening? Does anyone see the letters? Would you know, have you heard of any? There was a letter in December and a different letter in January. Would you know of those and if anything's happened with them?
Yes, that's right. I've seen those letters indeed. And yes, that is also a concern of some members about the humanitarian situation in North Korea, the impact that sanctions may have. But of course, there are already some humanitarian exemptions which are existing. Now the question is whether they are enough or not enough, and there again, I mean, we always have a little bit the same discussion in the committee about that, but. Once again, I don't think there will be an evolution of positions.
Any other questions? Well, okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.